governor of Ohio's goals are.
Thank you.
Brendan Heisey, which is grandson of Bart.
Great-grandson.
And my grandson, Knox Meadows, who's in the back. These two young men play football together and attend the Dawson School District. So we're thrilled to have them with us this evening. So it is my honor to introduce a remarkable individual who is poised to lead Ohio into a new era of prosperity and innovation. Vivek Ramaswamy, a devoted father of two spirited boys and the proud husband of Apura Ramaswamy. She is a distinguished surgeon at Ohio State. Vivek, an Ohio native, embodies the spirit of Ohio family values. As an accomplished author of 4 remarkable books, including New York Times bestsellers, his latest work, Truce, has captured national attention and sparked meaningful conversations across the country. Vivek is also a billionaire entrepreneur who has revolutionized the healthcare industry as the founder of Roivant Sciences, Chapter, and Stride. His brilliance is underscored by his education, as he is the proud graduate of Yale Law School and Harvard, bringing together legal insight and passion for innovation. Beyond his business success, he showcases his creative talents as the executive producer of the compelling documentary series, City of Dreams. Republican candidate for U.S. President. He brought fresh perspective. Who has wholeheartedly states Vivek Ramaswamy is running for governor of the great state of Ohio. I know him well, competed against him, and he is something special. He's young, strong, and smart. Vivek is also a very good person who truly loves our country. He will be a great governor of Ohio. He will never let you down, and he has my complete and total endorsement. I believe it's safe to say that Vivek Ramaswamy, and I've practiced that name.
That's good.
Right.
That's good. You're right. You nailed it.
It's not just a name. He's a trailblazer shaping the future of our great state. Please join me in welcoming a leader who is ready to take Ohio to new heights. Vivek Ramaswamy.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You still commissioner now? Thank you for everything you're doing, all right?
I'll speak with you later.
I'm excited. We would love that. We would love that. Oh, thank you. That was a very warm welcome, and just give our county commissioner another round of applause here. That's great. Thank you. I didn't make it easy for you. It's Vivek like cake, and Ramaswamy like Ramaswamy. That's the only way you could say that one. I said to say, I had the honor of meeting Bert and Leona beforehand. Can you believe this? My wife, you made me think about this. My wife and I, and she's the real hero in our family. She's a successful physician who takes care of patients every day. We're about to celebrate our 10th anniversary this year, and we know what a special milestone that is for our family. They're going to celebrate their 74th anniversary this year. Can you believe that? That's a milestone for the family. I love that. And I made a commitment when it comes to celebrating their big 75th, I'm going to be there next year. Okay, so it's great. It's good to be back here in Southern Ohio. Sheriff Lawless, where are you? I want to thank you, my man. Thank you. Stand up again. Thank you. Give this man a round of applause, too. I appreciate your support. Like Ramaswamy, I said it's Sheriff Lawless like the law is really what that man stands for. But I want to thank all of you for the warm welcome. And the reason we're here tonight is the same reason I started off this circuit of Lincoln Day dinners in Hawking County. I don't just want to govern from a bubble in Columbus. We want to listen to every Ohioan in every part of this state. And in the short time I've already been in this campaign, it has made me better prepared to be a better leader because of conversations like the one we had even over the last hour in this room. I want to thank you for that. I came here from earlier today. We stopped in Portsmouth and we stopped by a children's museum, actually, and I met a gentleman. Some of you might even know him, perhaps. It's not but half an hour from here, by the name of Justin Clark. And he shared something with me when I asked him about some of the struggles in the community. They built this children's museum that serves as now, it's almost a convening place in the community. They built it in the fall of 2021 after the COVID-19 pandemic. And I said, what was your secret to success? And I'll tell you what he shared with me, and I think it's going to be the theme of my remarks to you all tonight, is that what he said is we realized that nobody is going to come here and save us. It's going to be up to us to step up and save ourselves, which I thought was a beautiful sentiment. He was right about that. And I think that's what the stuff of saving our country is really going to be all about. President Trump, he's doing his part. Thank you, by the way, for every one of you for working hard to send him back to the White House as I did. He's reviving our country from the top. And I'm so proud of him for doing it in what is probably the greatest political comeback in American history, if not world history, to be able to come back and say we're going to save the country in the way that he is right now. But even he knows, and I think every one of us know, it's not a one-man job. It's not even going to be one man coming down from the White House to save us. It's not going to be one governor from the governor's mansion in Columbus to save us. If we're going to be saved, it's like my friend Justin told me today. It's going to be because we all step up and save ourselves. Look at where we are as a country. For the last 4 years, we've gone through a national identity crisis. Faith in God, patriotism, hard work, family. These things have all but disappeared in so much of our country, especially among young people. I'm a millennial. People in my generation and younger have for so long lost our sense of purpose and meaning, hungering to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Yet so many young people couldn't even answer what it meant to be an American in the last 4 years. In the Biden years, less than 16% of Gen Z said they were proud to be an American. And we had a 25% recruitment deficit in our U.S. military. That was unacceptable. That's why I traveled the country last year to make sure we sent back President Trump as our 47th president. And you know what? Now, I'm as optimistic as I have ever been for the future of our country. I do believe we're on the cusp of a new golden age in America. A revival now, finally, of conviction in what it means to be a citizen of this nation. What does it mean to be an American in the year 2025? It means we still believe in the ideals of 1776. It means we believe in ideals like merit and the pursuit of excellence and hard work. That you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That's why we're done with the DEI woke regime of yesterday. No more affirmative action or racial quota system. We're done with it. Back to merit in America. Means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the proud son of legal immigrants to this country. That means thank you, from Cincinnati, Ohio. My parents came here with nothing 45 years ago. I've gone on to live the full American dream. I say this as the proud son of those legal immigrants. That also means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. And that is why if we've had the largest influx of illegals into the country in American history, we ought to have the largest mass deportation in American history. And that's not controversial. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. It means the people we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually make the laws, not unelected bureaucrats in the deep state of Washington, D.C., or the regulators in Columbus, Ohio, for that matter either. Means that we as Americans are courageous, that we are brave, and that when called upon, even heroic, to do what is right for our country in our hour of need. That's what won us the American Revolution. That's what President Trump is aiming to bring back as the next president, as the current, now 47th president of the United States. But it is not a one-man job. I think that in the next step, if you look at what's happening in Washington, D.C., kicking out the Department of Education back to the states and to the people last week, we saw that. That's a great step. That's a great first step. But to finish the job, we're going to require the states to lead the way. And I believe the golden age for America will be a golden age for federalism in America, as our founding fathers envisioned it. Programs from education to healthcare coming back to the states and to the people where they belong. And that's where I see we in Ohio here have an opportunity to lead the way. President Trump's reviving our conviction in America, but we need a leader here at home who's going to revive our conviction in Ohio. And that's why last month I declared my candidacy to become the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to the history of mankind. The state where I was born and raised and where I'm raising my two sons today. That's why I'm running to be your next governor right here in our state of Ohio. And we will not stop until we lead Ohio back to greatness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Give a round of applause to our enthusiastic people who served our food today. Thank you. They were fantastic. You guys are great. Thank you. And we've got your back, every one of you. I don't want to lead Ohio just to be one of the better states in the Midwest. Frankly, we are a great state, okay? But great is not good enough. We got to lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to raise a family, to grow a business, to generate wealth and keep that wealth, to give our kids a world-class education in math, reading, writing, physical education, critical thinking, where we give our kids the tools not to see themselves as victims, but as victors in a competitive global economy. The state where we embrace capitalism and meritocracy without apologizing for it, where we take a hatchet job to the red tape and government bureaucracy and over-regulation that's holding our economy back. The state where we lead in the sectors of the future, from aerospace to semiconductors to AI. I want Ohio to be the state of excellence in America, the state where patriots across this country are flocking back to, not Florida or Texas, but right here in our own home state of Ohio. Now, there are those who will say that's unrealistic. It's too ambitious, too lofty to imagine that for our state of Ohio, where we are today. Well, I will remind you that it wasn't long ago that Ohio was that state, actually. See, young people on the internet today, they have this meme. They like to make fun of Ohio in the last couple of years. When they see something old or outdated or out of fashion, you know, the younger guys, they'll know this. There's a little meme that'll say, "Only in Ohio." It actually irritates me, to be honest with you. They're making fun of us. But it wasn't long ago that people weren't making fun of Ohio. They were aspiring to be Ohio. At the turn of the last century, we were the wealthiest state in the Union, the third most populous state in the United States of America. We were an economic powerhouse, including led by places like where we are right now. Fertile farmland, great natural resources underneath our ground. We led the way in the first industrial revolution, even in the 1950s. And that's not that long ago, if you think about it. Even in the 1950s, 6 of the top 15 wealthiest cities in America were right here in Ohio. Toledo was the glass capital of the world. Akron was the rubber capital. Youngstown and Cleveland were jointly the steel capitals of the world. Dayton was the computing power engine that led the entire first industrial revolution. My hometown of Cincinnati was known around the world as the Queen City. We were Porkopolis. We powered the food supply chain for the entire country. We were the consumer products capital of the West. We were the pioneers. The explorers, the unafraid, the people who no government or bureaucracy would dare to stop from achieving the maximum of our potential. The state where Neil Armstrong gained the self-confidence to be a kid born and raised and living in Ohio when he went to the outer frontiers of outer space and became the first man to walk on the moon. John Glenn, who went into orbit, the first American to do it around the Earth. The state of the Wright brothers, not too far from where we are right now in Dayton, Ohio, growing up, deciding that, you know what, the cars weren't good enough. They were going to fly, and they were going to be the people who led us into the skies. Think about the self-confidence you got to have as a kid to grow up in what was the leading economic engine and economic heartland of the country to say, you know what, I believe I can achieve the impossible. I believe it because I grew up in the United States of America, and I grew up right here in the great state of Ohio to have that self-confidence. We were the state of excellence in America. And we can be that state again. You think about it. We have every advantage we did the last time around. The same fertile farmland. The same natural resources, including natural gas, right underneath our own ground in this state. The same geographic location at the heart of a country. The same Erie Canal to New York City, the same Ohio River to the Mississippi. Today, 60% of North America's population, not just America's, North America's population, within a single day's drive of where we're sitting right now. God has blessed our state with every gift we could possibly imagine for our state to be the state that leads America back to greatness. All we need to do is to start believing in ourselves again to actually do it. And the good news is we are in the middle of a second industrial revolution right now. And if Silicon Valley led the way for the last 10 years in the American economy, I want to make sure it is the Ohio River Valley for the next 10 years. All right, we're going to get this started and light that fire under our feet. It's not the Rust Belt anymore. It's coming back and bringing the Platinum Belt to Ohio, okay? But it may not be exactly the same sectors as in the past. Let's be frank about that. It may not be rubber production next time around. But it's going to be the sectors of the future, from semiconductor production to nuclear energy, to natural gas, to biotech, to Bitcoin, to our defense industrial base. The state where we use AI not to take jobs, but to make jobs through workforce training and education. I was at Shawnee State earlier today. Beautiful way of combining four-year degree programs for the students for whom that's right, while also combining high-tech education and vocational programs for two-year or one-year programs for students for whom that's the right path. This is where we're going in Ohio. That's where I'm going to lead our state. This is our modern-day Northwest Ordinance right here in Ohio. We are a conservative state, and we deserve to finally be governed like one. That's not going to lose us elections. That will win us elections because it's going to put more money in your pocket. It's going to put more money in your kids' investment accounts. It's going to lift up more people from poverty. It's going to revive that civic self-confidence in our kids that they deserve as their birthright as Ohioans and as Americans, so that we become the state where patriots across this country who share our values are actually flocking to, rather than the other way around. It's going to require some changes. I think it will require a fresh generation of leadership in our state. I think it's going to require, if I may say so, a governor with fresh legs who is willing to run through any obstacle that stands in the way. And I want to recognize, I probably don't do this enough, I want to recognize the accomplishments of those who came before me. I think there's been a lot that Governor DeWine's done in the recent years that deserves to be applauded, even in recent weeks. Signing SB 1 into law, I respect that, right? Getting the DEI indoctrination out of our universities, some early economic development that's led to a boom in Columbus. There's a foundation we're beginning with that I want to recognize. But we want to build on that foundation now to really restore Ohio back to our full form of greatness. We got to be able to compete with the other states that have already stepped on the gas. One of the things we're going to do, okay, we're going to make Ohio a zero income tax state because you deserve to keep what you earn. It is your money, not the government's. I said, how are you going to do that? Don't worry, we got a plan to do it, but I'll give you the punchline. If we're the state to put a man on the moon, and 8 other states have done this, we're going to figure this out, all right? It's not as complicated as they'll make it out to be. And you know what? I'll even go further. While we're at it, we're also going to put a ceiling on property taxes in this state, which have gotten way too high. It's unjust. You think about it. You own your land, right? Life, liberty, and property. That was John Locke. That was the inspiration for Thomas Jefferson, the person who admitted our state to the Union in 1803, who said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What does that mean? It means if you own your land, you own it. Well, today, if you own your land right now, you're paying probably as much on just your interest payments and your principal repayments as you are on your property taxes, which makes it feel a lot like the land that you own is really just a lease from the government. That's unjust. It's un-American, and it is antithetical to our values here in Ohio. Bring the property tax burden down. Get rid of the income tax. Take it to zero. Actually, get rid of government regulation in every domain, from drilling and fracking for oil and natural gas in our state to a manufacturing boom to the construction of housing. Get rid of the red tape that stands in the way at every step of the way. For every regulation they try to put up, when I'm your next governor, we will require that they rescind at least 10 others before I even consider it. That's how we're going to unlock an economic boom in every part of this state. So I want to get practical here, because we have some challenges to confront. And you know, if you care about somebody, you tell them the truth. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. I think there are three major challenges in our state that I believe, frankly, politicians in neither party are talking enough about or addressing enough. But the good news is we can still turn the ship around if we actually prioritize the issues that are going to affect our state in the future. They're not the kind of issues that are going to grab headlines on cable news, but they're the kind of issues that we're going to have to address if we're restoring our state back to greatness. I'll lay them out for you. The first is the electricity crisis in our state. We have an electricity shortage. The second is our population problem. We have a shrinking population. And the third is our educational achievement crisis. I'm going to talk about all three of those in turn. Let's get really practical and roll up our sleeves. Let's talk about the energy shortage in our state. We have a major opportunity here. We have an AI data center boom of all kinds of manufacturing and AI data centers that are being constructed across our state. That's an opportunity, and it's a good thing. Just by show of hand, anybody familiar with the AI data centers, or is that something that you've seen coming across the street? A good number of you. So there's a lot of computing power required for these AI data centers, and they've chosen Ohio as a home for a lot of reasons. We have good geographic proximity to the rest of the country. We've got natural gas underneath our ground. But that is going to require much greater demand on our electric grid, more than we've ever seen in the history of our state. And that demand comes at the exact same time that we've seen the greatest restraint on base load power generation because of the left's war on coal and natural gas in our state. So that's a problem, because if we've already cut production because of the attack on coal and natural gas, but then now you have much more demand coming in the next 5 years in our electric grid, that math doesn't add up. And one of the things that worries me is I'm concerned that, frankly, both parties haven't paid enough attention to that raw math. Here's what that's going to add up to. Electricity costs have gone up about 2x in the last decade, if not a little bit more. I think it could be 4x in the next 5 years unless we step up and address this. I told you my parents were legal immigrants from India. My father actually grew up in a small rural village in the southern part of India. It was kind of in the boonies, even by Indian standards. And that was a third world country. He used to take us back during the summers when we were growing up in Evendale, Ohio. I think so we could see our grandparents, but also so we could see what it was like. You turn on the light switch, it might come on 8 hours a day. It might not come on either. They had reliable electricity for 8 hours a day. The refrigerator would work for about those 8 hours, but if you put your milk in afterwards, it was going to go bad by the next morning. You had to boil the water to be able to keep it cool, mix it with the hot water to take a bath. You had 8 hours a day in the context of rotating power outages. And then when we came back to Cincinnati, I was so grateful. Right? We'd turn on the light switch, it would come on 10 times out of 10. We'd go to the fridge, put the milk in there, it'd still be good the next morning. We didn't grow up upper class, but I think part of the reason my parents did it is they wanted us to be grateful for living in a first world life that we could take for granted, to have that appreciation. And boy, did I, in 5th and 6th grade, have that appreciation when we would come back at the end of the summer. Well, now the irony is in other parts of the world, where they're burning more coal than they ever have in the past, including in places like India, they now have 24/7 power. That place has Domino's, Pizza Hut, and air conditioning now. That village doesn't even look like what it did back then. And yet now, here all the way In the other hemisphere, in the United States of America, in states like California, what you have is rotating power outages. God forbid we're going to have those here in Ohio. And as your next governor, I'll make sure that we don't. We have energy abundance in our state. Energy dominance in the state of Ohio. And it's going to be coal, natural gas, oil, and also the energy of the future that includes nuclear energy, including small modular nuclear reactors, where we will make sure that Ohio leads the way. That's number one. Energy dominance in the state of Ohio. Not as a talking point, but getting serious about rolling up our sleeves and addressing the actual risk. Number two, we have a demographic issue in our state. It's a little uncomfortable to address, but I'm going to tell you just the facts like they are, okay? Our population in our state is shrinking, and there's a couple of factors driving it. Number one is our fertility rate, that is the number of kids being born, is going down. Our fertility rate was the lowest it had been in our history back in 2020. Now it's a lot lower than even it was in 2020. So people are having fewer kids. A lot of reasons for that. People in my generation feel financial insecurity. The first generation to be unsure if our kids are going to live a better life than we did. So people are having fewer kids. But the flip side is we also have an aging population, which means our death rate is going up. So our natural rate of population growth is actually shrinkage. And then on top of that now, this is in the last 5 years that this has changed, we have more people moving out of our state than into our state. So A, you've got a natural shrinkage with the fertility and death rate. B, you've got more people now moving out than in. And I like to get into the details. I want to understand what's going on here. So we look at who's moving in and who's moving out. So a lot of the people moving in are coming from our neighboring states. They tend to be people who are actually more dependent on government aid. The people moving out tend to be younger people who are college educated, often educated in our own state, that are going to other states to pursue the American dream. Again, that math doesn't add up well for us. We've got to reverse this pattern of demographic decline in our state. Now, the way I want to do that is in a very literal sense. I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'm going to do it in the next 2 months. We're going to lay out a vision that literally puts money in the pockets of the kids who are born here so they can live the American dream and allow you to keep it through zero income taxation, capping your property tax rates, making this the state where you can build a new home, build a new startup, build a new company, build a new manufacturing plant, build a family, build wealth, build a life in the mold of the American dream. We're going to have to regrow as a state, a population boom of a kind that we had for most of our state's history. We're going to be a state that attracts people in rather than exporting people out. And that's number two. Is my top objective as your governor. The metric for success is the number of people moving in versus out, the number of kids born into families in our state, and the number of those kids who actually stay in our state rather than moving out elsewhere. And the third element of this is our educational achievement crisis. This is not specific to Ohio, but this is an issue across the country where we here in Ohio have a chance to lead the way. I'm going to give you some hard facts here. 75% of 8th graders right now are not proficient in math. Okay? 70% aren't proficient in reading. Kids in China are a full 4 years ahead of the average student here. That means a 7th grader here in the U.S. is performing at the equivalent of an average 3rd grader in China. There was a girl who graduated from a Connecticut high school last year, whose mom is now suing her school district, by the way. She graduated from Connecticut high school with honors, and she can't read. There's kids in other countries where English isn't their first language performing better on English proficiency than our own students here. That's unacceptable to me. Speaking as a parent of 2 sons, an Ohioan, and as an American, I refuse to just stand by and idly watch as China laughs at our gradual decay into oblivion. No, we're going to turn this ship around. We're going to do it right here in Ohio. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country and in the world to give our kids a world-class education in math, reading, writing, physical education, civic education, and financial literacy. And we're going to do it by embracing every approach, School choice, yes, I favor school choice because every parent deserves, as their God-given right, to be able to send their kids to the best possible school they can to achieve the maximum of their potential. But we're also going to be a state, we have to be a state, where our public schools are able to compete with the best of those alternatives. Because the reality is in many rural parts of the state, as much as we love school choice, there aren't those choices that exist either. Our public schools remain our only choice. So we're going to make some basic reforms to tighten the screws on our public schools, to fill the gaps a little bit, to make sure that we use our dedicated base of police officers, so we have at least one of them in every school in the state, to make sure our kids are safe in schools. Let's start with that. To make sure our kids show up at school. A chronic absenteeism epidemic that we've had in this state since the COVID-19 school closures. I'll promise you this, as your next governor, never again will we bend the knee to a fake Anthony Fauci knockoff who allowed our public schools to be closed while our private schools remained open. We got to make sure our kids show up to school. But we got to stand for the achievement of our students in every respect. I was having a conversation with a couple of you who were educators beforehand. Who was the retired math and physics teacher I was speaking to? Sorry, I forgot your name. You want to stand up? You were here earlier. What's that? Oh, there you are, yeah. Remind me your name, sir. Remind me your name? Ken Shipley. This is such a good community. I love it. We mind if I tell him? We had a frank conversation. I asked him, what is your perspective? You were a principal too, right? So what was your perspective on discipline in our schools? I think we need to bring back empowering teachers and principals to implement discipline in our schools. Ken may have had some more aggressive approaches, than others may suggest. But the point is, right now our teachers are completely disempowered to be able to handle poor behavior in the classroom. It's a major problem in our cities. It's a major problem across the entire state. We also have a problem where we have to admit to ourselves when a student isn't ready to move to 8th or 9th or 10th grade, we should have the courage to say that it's not success if we just treat them like a widget on an assembly line, but you gotta do what's right by making sure the kid is ready to move to that next phase of education. These things are hard, that's controversial. But again, if you care about somebody, you tell them the truth. We gotta stand for the achievement of our students. Here's another hard truth. Do we have the best and brightest entering the teaching profession anymore? Not anymore, we don't. And here's why. It's a $45,000 starting salary for a public school teacher today. Is it possible to live the American dream as a public school teacher anymore? Not with costs what they are right now. I want to make sure the best public school teachers in this state are able to be paid a lot more than they are right now. But that requires also paying for performance in some measure. To make sure the best ones are paid more, we got to be able to measure who's actually performing at their best. That's not just teaching to the test. That's asking for peer assessments in the school, because teachers know who's carrying their weight and who's not. That means parental assessments, because parents know generally which teachers are really meeting their kids for their right needs and which ones aren't. It means at least a majority of our public school budgets need to be going to classroom instruction, because outside of the family, the number one factor that determines whether a student succeeds is the quality of his teachers, when right now 70% of our budget's going to overhead instead of classroom instruction. All right, so these aren't headline-grabbing issues, but it's the meat and potatoes of actually leading a state back to greatness, back to energy dominance, back to a growing population rather than a shrinking one, back to a state where we give our kids that world-class education, not just in the classroom, but physical education too. We're going to be able to make sure we bring PE back to kindergarten, starting at a young age. We'll bring back the presidential fitness test in high school. All right, that includes the pull-ups. And that's okay. And it's not just the physical health, it's mental health too. Get the cell phones out of the classroom. It's not doing any good for our kids. Time to put an end to it. I left mine in the car today. I didn't even want it to distract me. Right, today, even when I'm here at these dinners, I love talking to you lovely people, and then you'll get some phone call, some text message, buzzes. You're half distracted and paying attention in the conversations I'm having with all of you. Turns out a kid gets 60 notifications per week on their phone while they're in the classroom. All right, it's a source of distraction, and we need to make it easier for our kids to actually succeed. I think part of what we need to do in this mental health epidemic is fill that deeper void with the real thing. I said it earlier, we're in the middle of this identity crisis. Young people are hungry to be part of something bigger, hungry for purpose and meaning and identity, at a time in our national history when the things that used to fill that void, faith in God, patriotism, family, hard work, have disappeared. We have to stand for what's true. Individual, family, nation, and God beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to stand for what is right, what is good, what is true. And it's to that end, I'm going to make sure that when I'm your next governor, we're going to bring back civic education in all of our public schools. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning with a moment of silence to go along with it. To take a moment to reflect on the why of why we're here and what that higher purpose is. Replace the victimhood psychology and woke indoctrination with actual civics lessons, actual U.S. history that teaches our kids to be proud of our country and our state rather than to be ashamed of it. And some of that involves a little tough love and heightening our standards. Every high school senior who graduates from an Ohio public school on my watch will have to pass the same civics test that every legal immigrant had to pass before becoming a naturalized citizen. You got to know something about your country, to love your country, to respect your country. This shouldn't be controversial. This is common sense. That then lays the foundation for doing for the rest of the state what I saw at Shawnee State earlier today. Reforming higher education to make sure that, yes, we have great universities for our sons and daughters who want to pursue four-year college degrees, to become doctors or engineers or entrepreneurs. But also that we are the state where every son and daughter of Ohio who wants to become a machine operator or a welder or an electrician or a mechanic or a builder or a carpenter also has his path to the American dream too. Integrate earn while you learn programs into high school where kids are ready for it. Not just in 10th grade, but really start putting money in their pocket as early as 9th grade with the skill set. And let's be honest, for those of us who have kids, or those of us who have taught kids, you know as early as 9th grade whether a kid is called to a particular direction, that you don't put a square peg in a round hole. You give him the path that leads every son and daughter to achieve the maximum of his own potential, to get that self-confidence, to earn some money while you're at it. Our regulations get in the way. That's going to change when I'm your next governor. To be able to revive that pride in not the trades. I don't call them the trades, and I encourage us to let that go. We don't call them the trades. We call them professions because that is what they are, deserving the same degree of respect as being a lawyer or a banker or a doctor. And I think we fall into this trap sometimes where, I say this here for the conservatives, you know, our side of this sometimes, we'll fall into a trap where then we'll say, oh, no, all that stuff's elite. It's the elites. It's us versus the elites, where they're the ones getting the four-year college degrees. I told them, I went to Harvard, Yale, all that stuff. I'm proud of it. I lived the American dream. That was the right path for me. But my path can't be the only path. So it's not that one of these is more elite than the other, or one is good and the other one's bad, or the other one's bad and this one's good. No, they're all elite. That's the point. We're all elite as Ohioans and as Americans. We got to embrace the fact that every son and daughter who wants to become that engineer or computer programmer or entrepreneur or businessman can do that, while every son and daughter who wants to become a welder or a mechanic or an electrician can pursue their path as well. That's what the true American dream is about. That is what a true meritocracy is about. It recognizes that every one of us, every one of you, has your own unique God-given gift, distinct from every other person in the world. And that we are the nation where you get to use the maximum of your God-given gifts to achieve the maximum of your potential without any government or bureaucracy or system standing in your way. That is the American dream. That is what made America great. And that is how we're going to make Ohio great again. I want every young person in the state not being spiteful towards somebody else's success who succeeded through capitalism, but instead embraces it because they're participating in it with real skin in the game. That's my message to our kids, to my two sons and every son and daughter in this state, is that we are the place where the American dream is your birthright, where a world-class education is your birthright, where success is your birthright, freedom is your heritage, and excellence is your destiny. That is who we are as Ohioans and as Americans. This is not a small vision for our state. It is an ambitious vision because that is who we really are as Ohioans and as Americans. We're not victims, we're victors. We don't whine, we win. That's who we are. All right, and I'm not a career politician. I'm not going to give you the standard feel-good slogans. I'm somebody who's lived the full arc of the American dream. I've succeeded at a level that my parents would have never imagined when they came here 45 years ago. And I will fight every day to pass that American dream on to my kids and their generation, because that is what our duty is as successful Americans in our lifetime today. I'm going to fight to the end for the state. We're visiting all 88 counties this year. We're going to visit all 88 counties next year. We're going to visit all 88 counties every one of the next 8 years after that I serve as your next governor. We want to listen to you. From the inner city of Toledo to the foothills of Appalachia. We want a Big Ten coalition. And frankly, I'm glad that Republicans are with us, but we want libertarians, independents, politically homeless Democrats, orphaned Reagan Democrats, independents. If you're homeless, and I mean politically homeless, okay, in the sense of that. But if you care about a world-class education for your kids, if you care about giving your kids the same shot at the American dream that this country and this state gave me, I really mean this. We're on the same team. And we may not agree on every little detail, but we're going to have a seat for you at the table in this movement, and we're going to work with you to lead our state to the next level. Even those who run against me, including in the general election, to the extent we have a primary, I'd say the same thing. I want the best ideas we possibly can to work together to lead every region of this state to the next level. I'm not running to be the mayor of Greater Columbus, by the way. Okay, I'm running to be the governor of all of Ohio. I want to lift up every part of Ohio. That's how we're going to measure our success. That's the way we want to lead our state back to greatness. We don't have to be this state in decline anymore. We don't have to be a nation in decline. We can still be a nation in our ascent, on our way up. A nation where we will look our kids in the eye and mean it when we tell them that you get ahead in the United States of America and you get ahead in the great state of Ohio with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you know what? You're free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That 10 years from now, when I'm done after 2 terms as your next governor, what are our young people going to be saying on the internet then? When we're sending manned rockets to Mars, when we're powering our electric grid with the energy of the future, when we're curing previously incurable genetic diseases with cures discovered here in Ohio, you know what they're going to say then? Yep. Only in Ohio. That's right. This young man, stand up, man. Give this great-grandson, Burton's great-grandson here, give him a round of applause. We're in this for you and your generation, man. I'm so proud of you. That's the native desire that every one of us has. We're all born with it. Right? We share one thing in common. It's that we're not given a long time on this earth. We each are given our own short time. As Burton will tell you, some longer than others, which we're grateful for, right? And that's, we want to learn your secrets. But we don't take any day for granted. You don't? You told me that. I wake up, I see it the same way. Every morning we wake up is a gift. I had a friend who called me on Saturday morning when we had a Lincoln Day dinner like this that evening, and it came as a bit of a shock. It was a friend who I met in Iowa, where I was campaigning for U.S. president, spent a lot of time in Iowa a couple of years ago. We made a lot of friends in rooms like this. One of the early guys who supported me, he didn't have to do it. He was a great patriot, served his state, served his country. Midway through the campaign, he told me he couldn't make it to the events anymore because he had a medical issue. We learned what it was. He had pancreatic cancer. They called me on Saturday morning, and it was like a gut punch this weekend where I got a text message from one of our other friends. He said, you need to call our friend this morning. I called him as soon as I saw it, Saturday morning, first thing when I woke up, and he was headed into hospice as a young man, and that was a relatively young man. And you know what? It sat with me. It reminded me We wake up that Saturday morning, there's a lot of stresses of running a campaign, there's this and that I need to manage. It just sets you straight for a little bit. It reminds you, we're not given a very long time on this earth. It's not our choice. It's up to a higher power than us. But I think the thing we're all wired with, the native fact that we all share this mortality in common, I think gives every one of us a hardwired need to be a hero in the short time that we're given. To make a difference in the short time that we're given. And yes, you can be a hero as a U.S. president, or as a governor, or as a CEO. But you can also be a hero as a public school teacher, a nurse, a police officer, a sheriff, a county commissioner, a father, a loving son to a ailing mother. There are many ways to be a hero. And I think the beauty of this country is that we're a country that allows you to be hero in every way that you know how. That is your path and your choice in this country. And that's our calling. That's what we share in common. That's what makes our country greater than any other country known to the history of man. It's those set of ideals that made our country what we are, right? Any of us in this room, you can go to Italy, beautiful country, but you'll never be an Italian, okay? You can go to France, you'll never be a Frenchman. You can go to Japan, you'll never be Japanese. You can go to China, you'll never be a Chinese person. But you can come from any one of those countries to right here in the United States of America, and you can still be an American if you pledge allegiance to the ideals enshrined in this flag. Those are the ideals that won us the American Revolution. Those are the ideals that reunited us after the Civil War. Those are the ideals that won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. Those are the ideals that still give hope to the free world. And if we can revive those ideals over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to stop us. That is what true American exceptionalism is all about. And that is what we are going to revive right here in Ohio to save this great nation. Thank you for coming out today, guys. God bless you and your families. May God bless our United States of America and our great state of Ohio. Keep fighting. Fight, 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 and we will get the job done. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.